Video games are under attack. Hello, YouTube and fellow citizens. It is the Sovereign Citizen again, and today I'm going to be talking about a subject that has affected my friends and myself dearly. And this topic is GamerGate. Now, I won't be describing what GamerGate was in depth. You can go to Sargon of Akkad's YouTube channel. He has a playlist covering GamerGate as it was happening a couple years ago. Uh, but in brief, GamerGate started out as a controversy or an investigation about bias in video game journalism and was hijacked by feminists and SJWs alike. And they switched it. They switched the focus towards women in gaming. Now that I've briefly explained it, let's look at how society looked at and controlled video games. Now, anyone with a conservative family member or family friend that played video games a while back ago has probably heard what this comic is saying. The woman saying, "Oh, kids that play video games are a bunch of violent parasites of society who will end up committing mass murder." And the guy going, "Those games you're playing are full of satanic messages. Don't you get it?" Uh, and like most art, video games were censored. If you look in Germany, they have a very strict censorship on video games. No swastikas, no killing humans. Games developers that wanted to sell in Germany, because Germany is a great economy. Developers that wanted to sell in Germany had to change their game drastically just for Germany, and it censored them to the point that some games don't even want to sell in Germany. Now, a lot of this bullshit has come from the conservative and right wing outlets like Fox News. I would say this was a couple of years ago. I would say it had to be 6 years ago, if not a little bit less. The link between teen killers and video games. All these killers that had mental problems, they had sociological problems and psychological problems, went off and killed people, but they played video games. That's a common denominator we found, and we want to censor art because we're Fox News. And then you have this comic here. I'm not sure if it's right wing or not, but father's reading a newspaper that has school shooting. Where do kids learn to be so violent? He thinks to himself. And while little Jimmy in the back is playing Cop Killer, that's rated M for mature, that he probably bought with a controller that looks like something out of Fallout 4. But that was from the 1990s because of Columbine and all that. From the 1990s to the mid 2000s, even the late 2000s, I would say before 2010, and obviously before Gamergate. But the tide has come in from conservatives, and this is now. You have the people that have heard the bullshit from the conservatives that are gaming now hear it from the leftists. The gaming culture is full of misogynistic basement dwellers, sexist pigs who live only to harass women. Those games you're playing are full of racism, homophobia, and sexism. Don't you get it, you white male? And that comes from news outlets like BuzzFeed, if I can even call them news. It comes from like BuzzFeed and the New York Times and all that. But here's the main culprit: Anita Sarkeesian. She's the Lenin of this Gamergate movement. She's the reason why there's so much bullshit in gaming. That and she's made gaming into a politically correct wonderland where games like Battlefield 1 are attacked for not having women characters in multiplayer, and where we actually ponder if killing someone of the opposite sex in an online game is rape. This was from Kotaku, a very respectable gaming journalist website, and they were at the center of GamerGate as well. Uh, you can look them up. They've had their fingers in GamerGate for a while, but it's absurd, and you have games now becoming more and more PC, and sometimes it's ruining games. Speaking of Battlefield 1, you have all kinds of historical inaccuracies. This is what GamerGate has done to Battlefield 1. Uh, it made the game a 20th century game based in World War One, where more white men died. Yeah, but more white men died in this war than previous wars. More white men died in this war than blacks had died in slavery. All right, and it was a horrific war. And then you have you have a Sikh as a British medic. I believe there's another African in there within the British. I can't tell by this screenshot, but a lot there weren't in the British Empire. Those two wouldn't see a lot of action in Europe. They would see a lot of action. They'd be on their homeland guarding from an inevitable attack. Then you have a German recon where there were only three black Germans in the army that we could find, that this one YouTuber could find, and two of them were in a marching band. And then you have a Harlem Hellfighter as the cover person, which the Harlem Hellfighters, they rarely saw any combat. They were mostly pioneer groups digging trenches, building railroads for the army, and they rarely saw combat, like I said. And if they did, it was during the late war, and everyone's like, "Oh, they never lost a single checkpoint, or they never lost a single trench." Yeah, that's because America got into the war very late, and B, the Germans were already on the run. They were already retreating. The Germans were on the offensive once the Americans got into the war. It was at a stalemate. And then you have a woman main character, which this could possibly be accurate. Her story is that she's in the Ottoman Empire. She's part of an oppressed group that's being put into submission by the Ottoman Empire in Arabia, and she helps out Lawrence of Arabia, and it's possible. I'm not denying the fact that, but it's only Lawrence of Arabia isn't like that big of a story to put into your campaign. But like I said, Dice is in Sweden, feminist capital of the world, or no, the feminist government. But that's all the time I have for now. Thank you for watching. Join me next week. I'm not sure what I'm gonna make a video on next. I think it's gonna be on Milo Yiannopoulos. Twitter and WordPress links in the description, and stay free out there, everyone.